Welcome to Tech in the Right Direction, the podcast. This week, I'll be speaking with W. Curtis Preston, also known as Mr. Backup. Curtis has specialized in designing data protection systems since 1993 and has designed such systems for some of the largest organizations in the world. His lively prose and wry, real-world approach has made him a popular author and speaker. He has written 4 O'Reilly books, the latest of which is Modern Data Protection, published in 2021. He is also the host of BackupCentral.com and its Restore It All podcast. He is now Chief Technical Evangelist for Druva, the only at-scale SaaS provider of data protection. Welcome to the show, Curtis. I'm so excited to have you on.
Happy to be here.
Great. And this is our Mentors That Make a Difference segment. So thank you so much for being an ally for women in technology. Can you tell us more about you?
So I'm a specialist in backup and recovery, and I've been in the industry for 30 years. It's an odd specialty, but that's mine. And I'm currently the Chief Technical Evangelist for Druva, which is a SaaS-based backup and recovery provider.
That's great. Wow, backup and recovery is so important, right? I mean, our data is everything to us. So would love to chat more about that. So what are some of the critical problems your company solves for your customers?
Well, the main, basically, this is all about making sure that the data that's important for your organization continues to stay that, right? Continues to be there when you need it to be there. So our main role is to protect that data from a data protection standpoint, meaning making sure that we get that data consistently and repeatedly stored in a secure location, and then allow you to easily restore that data, either from individual files or emails or things like that, but also in a complete disaster recovery situation. I'm sure that you have heard of all of the ransomware attacks that that have been happening. We help several customers a month through some kind of ransomware attack. So that's basically our role.
Wow. So I remember in the old days, restoring a file was such a traumatic experience because you never knew that you didn't have it until you went to restore it and it didn't come up. I'm sure they've made a lot of progress in that area now. So is there special processes in restoring your data, or is it pretty much like your storage drive that you can just pull up the data later if you need it?
Well, so we're a SaaS-based, software as a service. We're a SaaS-based company, which means that all of our customers' data is stored in the cloud in our account in the cloud. We happen to run in AWS. So when they need to do a restore, the only choice so we're B2B, right? Meaning that we're not doing consumer data. So the only choice that a customer needs to decide is whether or not they want to enable what we call end user restores. So basically so if you worked for a company and they were using our service, they could make the decision that either they want to do the restores on your behalf, in which case you would have some sort of internal process to get a hold of some sort of help desk or something. But we also enable full end user support so that you can just go to your drive, push the appropriate buttons, and basically the file or the email or whatever it is comes back magically, if you will, from the cloud.
That's great. That's a great service for your customers. I know that's not easy, and when you need your data, you want it right at your fingertips. So that's great that you offer that. So this podcast is focused on bridging the employment, pay, and culture gap for women in technology. What are you seeing in the industry today?
Well, I see. So I'm in a part of being in the IT industry. There's a number of subsets of the IT industry, one of which is the storage industry. And I would say in the storage industry, we are the most challenged from a diversity and inclusion perspective. mainly from a gender perspective, not so much from an ethnicity perspective. And it's been that way since I joined the industry, and we're starting to see more females in this part of the industry. But I'd say, for example, the opposite of that would be, for example, the information security part of the world, where when I go to an information security conference, it's, it could even be a majority of women in that field. Whereas in my side, unfortunately, it's a significant challenge. And there are lots of reasons, both culturally and historically, I think, for that. But that's, you asked for what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing, unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's 100% accurate because, I don't see a lot of women in the data storage area. But then as you see the other parts of IT, that's growing. But there needs to be some focused effort in the data storage industry, I think, to maybe even do some training around that for women, and then, recruiting based on that training that is out there. So
Absolutely.
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately, sorry to,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
what I've seen, having spoken with several friends that are females in the industry, I've often heard the stories that you wouldn't think you would hear is, even sometimes when the training is available, sometimes they are discouraged from that training, not by companies, but sometimes in the, the college world, unfortunately.
Do you know why?
I wish I did. I really wish I did. I have two. I'm a girl dad. I have two grown daughters that I
Mhm,
want them to do absolutely anything they want to in life,
mhm, mhm,
and I want that for every woman. And I don't. I think it's, for the ones that I've heard. I can only speak from that. From the ones that I've heard, these professors sometimes think that they think they're doing it from a place of help. They think they're
mhm,
saying, this is going to be really hard. Did you know that, like, did you
mhm.
know that the storage industry has very few females? Well, right. Well, we can't we can't fix that if we don't offer the education.
Well, we
Um,
discouraged them right there, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're thinking, Maybe you should try information security or something." I think maybe some of them are doing it. They think they're trying to help, but I don't think they're helping.
Yeah. I think also we have to get them earlier on. Once they're in roles and outside of the age that we can really make an impact, it's
Mhm.
very difficult for us to get them to think that way. So we realize that the most impactful time is girls at the ages of 8 to 13. And if we can get them then their whole mindset is very different as they grow up, and go into careers. So could be some of that as well.
I am also a girl grandfather.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
have a 9-year-old grandfather. So I'll focus I'll focus on her.
yeah. That's great. No, that's great. I also have two daughters, and try to encourage them very early on, and they're really good with technology, but neither one of them are really, into technology the way I am.
Yeah.
But you know, I just push as much as I can and be an example for them. And then my granddaughters, same way. I feel the same way. Is just, the more encouragement, the more awareness we give them, the better it's going to be.
Right.
Yeah. So, what are some of the qualities in an ally that we should look for as we build allyship? Because allyship is so important for us to get to equity, because we need your support. We need your voice to, echo what we're saying, to give us a voice sometimes. How can an ally support us? What are some of the qualities you think they should possess?
Well, I'd say it's a lot. Um, I'd say first off, it's just a fact of acknowledging the challenge, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That and acknowledging that that's a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
the idea that, some men may think, well, so there's not a lot of women here. What's the problem, right? Um, and it's like the concept of gender and ethnic inclusion is the more you have of that, it's been so proven that it's better for everyone, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so I think the first thing is, if you're dealing with someone who um, I'm going to, I guess if they didn't acknowledge that, they wouldn't be trying to be an ally. So I
Right.
hope that they've done that. But if there's somebody who isn't an ally, they have to do that first. And then the next biggest thing I would say is, and it's almost equal with the first one, is just listen. My job is talking, right? I mean, this is part of my job. What I'm doing here with you is my job is talking. I do podcasts, and I do and I write. And even when I write via talking. My number one job in this is to stop talking, right? And to listen, and to just try to hear what the women in the workplace are experiencing, right? And to not dismiss the things that you hear, right? In times in the past when I would hear things, I would try to. It's kind of like the thing which that we talked about with the college professor. I might try to explain it away. Oh, well, he was just trying to help. Don't do that.
Right.
Right. Listen, and listen for what's happening, regardless of the purpose or the intent of the person. Listen to what's happening to the person who's experiencing these things. And the other thing, besides just sort of learning as much as you can about this, I try when we're in, I think one of the biggest challenges for women in the workplace, once they've actually gotten the job, is the talking over and the not listening in some sort of meeting situation. So I try to look for that, and I try to correct that where I can, to help advocate for someone. It's like, hey, Janet is making a really good point. Let's listen to her. Because sometimes they don't feel empowered to say, hey, I was I was talking over here, right? To help empower them that way, and to put the people that are cutting them off in their place, basically. But doing it in a way that's helpful, right?
Right.
Slamming that person isn't helpful, but
No.
doing it in a nice way of saying, hey, I think Janet was making a really good point. Let's hear her out.
That is so great. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head with all of those. So first, acknowledge the challenge, know that there's a problem, accept that there's a problem, and don't have your own kind of unconscious biases, which a lot of people have. We all do, and we need to acknowledge those challenges as problems, and then listen when a woman is talking or providing some thought process. And you're absolutely right to give them a voice, to advocate for them as much as you can. That is really what we need. So these are really, really great qualities that you expressed, and we really appreciate you for doing that for women in technology, so that we can have a voice, so that we can have the acknowledgement of the challenge, which is really, really important. So that's great.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's just, it's a journey. No one's perfect. And, you just have to, it's the whole, like, try to do better the next time, right? When
Right.
you're going to mess up, right?
Yeah, you learn as you go along. And if you have that open mind, you can learn. But if you don't have that open mind, you don't think that's a challenge, like you said, some people will say, oh, what's the problem if there's no women in here? They just haven't been good at this type of a job, or whatever, whatever their mindset is. So that's great. So you also host a podcast. Share with our listeners the name and where they can find you.
So I have two podcasts. My main
Okay.
podcast is the Restore It All
Mm-hmm.
podcast, which basically dedicated to helping everyone be able to restore all their data.
Nice.
And that is my independent podcast. That is, we do it once a week. We've been doing it for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all different topics. Right now, we're focusing on, we're doing what's called a Backup to Basics series. And we're working through my latest book, which is called Modern Data Protection. And we're just sort of going through and discussing basic things that you should know about backup and recovery and data protection. And then my day job, the Druva's is called No Hardware Required, and if you want to learn more about Druva, yeah, that's where you can go to do that.
That's great. That's great. I know our listeners will be very interested in listening to your podcast because data backup and restore is so important. So that's great. Um, so, what is one thing? You've been in your career a long time, you're the expert in backup and recovery. What's the one thing you wish you had known when you began your career that you know now?
Um, Gosh, it's been it's been I think I would say that the value, don't underestimate the value of being a specialist in an underappreciated field.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to this, as a specialist, and completely by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I got this job be, because I started at a credit card company back in '93, and the way I got the job, by the way, through my wife. So I owe my entire career to my wife, and she was a phenomenal administrative assistant for a senior executive VP at the bank, and basically I used that connection to get this job.
Mm-hmm.
And backups are the plumbing, if you will, of the IT industry. They're the job nobody wants, right? And I mean, think about plumbers. It's a tough job, but they get paid really well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about backups is that it's an underappreciated part of the IT industry. And if I'd have known sooner that that I could actually make more money and be happier
Mm-hmm.
by embracing it. I'd say it took me several years. It's funny in retrospect, given that I've been doing it for 30 years, in retrospect, it's not that much time
Right.
me to
Right.
do it. But I think there was that early phase where there were multiple times where I almost got out of backups, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of the dream of everyone, to become a real sysadmin, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get away from the plumbing and get more into the architecture, right?
Right. Right.
And but I didn't, but not not by any fault of my own. It was just complete happenstance. Even once I got out of the company that I did, and went into consulting, I got put into the headquarters of an oil and gas company, where it turns out their backups were broken, right? That
It's
it
meant to be.
just complete. So embrace, if you can find a specialty, especially if it's an underappreciated specialty. If you can find a specialty where you enjoy doing it, where you're passing on, value to people, embrace that specialty and stick with it. While also, I'll just say this as well: be prepared to dump that specialty if you find out that the world has moved on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
You
is
have to
one
be
challenge
real.
that I
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. I think, that's a great, that is awesome to say, if I knew that the specialist had so much value and if I didn't underestimate it then, I could have made more money. I could have been happier. I could have, really been that specialist. But it was a short period of time in your whole career. But at that time, it probably felt like a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay. Well, Curtis, I love to travel. And so this is kind of a selfish question so that I can add to my bucket list. What is your most favorite place that you've traveled to and why?
Oh, I have got the place for you.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Karlovy Vary
I have not.
in the Czech Republic?
Okay.
So,
I am taking notes.
Karlovy Vary is it translates, the name translates to Karl's Bath.
Okay.
It came from the first king of Bavaria, which is what that was at the time. It has 12 hot springs,
Oh,
natural hot springs,
uh-huh.
and they're the town is a bunch of Bavarian buildings nestled in the Alps,
Wow.
that are built around this I'm going to call it a river. It doesn't really qualify to be called that, but it's almost like a glorified brook. But
Hmm.
um, so there's all these Bavarian buildings around it, and then what you do is they have all these hot springs and stuff, but they tapped this each spring, and there's a public fountain that you can drink from, and the thing to do there is you go around with a ceramic mug and you drink from all of the hot springs. And then there's the 13th spring, they call it, which is a liqueur that they make there called
Oh,
Becherovka.
okay.
I found this place, like a lot of odd places that I've listened or that I've been to, in a movie. There is Queen Latifah
Hmm.
has a movie called Last Holiday,
Okay.
and she plays a person who believes she has a terminal illness and spends her entire uh, life savings to go on this last holiday, and she goes to Karlovy Vary, and it is a beautiful, just these Bavarian buildings, you know, again nestled in the Alps, and then you add in the spa aspect,
Hmm.
and it's just it's and by the way, it's 100 kilometers outside of Prague is where it is.
Wow. Wow.
So you can go to
Okay.
Prague, enjoy Prague, and you can do a day trip to Karlovy Vary.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. This
that's
is definitely going on my list.
Yeah, and by the way, it's from Karlovy Vary, which was originally called Carlsbad.
Hmm.
That's why Carlsbad, California, is named that, which is
Really?
where I
We were
live.
just there. Yeah, we were
So
just there.
Carlsbad, California, had a hot spring. They had it tested, and the mineral makeup of this hot spring was the same as the mineral makeup of the one in Europe, and so they named this Carlsbad after that Carlsbad, which then once it became the Czech Republic, they gave it a Czech, version of the name, which is
Mhm.
basically the same name but just in Czech.
Right. Okay, I am definitely. It's going on my list. This sounds so amazing. It really does. I can't wait to look it up. And
It's
then I want to watch that movie too with Queen Latifah. So
Yeah, Queen
I've got two
Latifah, and
things.
a shorter one I would add to it is Bruges. If you've
Okay.
never been to
No,
Bruges,
I haven't been
it's a
to Bruges. Mhm.
well preserved medieval town. It's in Belgium, and
Okay.
there's also a movie to go with that, which is In Bruges, and it's a dark comedy with lots of cursing. So if that's not your if that's
Okay.
not your
Okay.
style, then don't watch it. But it's a beautifully well preserved medieval town where the buildings are, on average around 1,000 years old,
Mm.
and they have tons and tons of local craft beer there.
I
So
am so excited. I asked you this question because you have some amazing answers. I can't wait. Thank you. Thank you. That is great.
anytime.
So, in closing, and this was an honor and just such a pleasure talking to you, but in closing, what advice would you give a woman considering a career in the tech industry?
Find that advocate,
Hmm.
right? Stop trying to butt heads with the non-advocate, whatever
Hmm.
whatever word you want to
Right. I
attach there.
agree. I agree.
Every company has that advocate. Find those advocates and work with them. it can be both, a male advocate and a female advocate. Look for women that have done what you want to do, latch onto them. I do find that in general, women are much more supportive of other women that are trying to make the same path. So find both male and female advocates and stop trying, to change the ones who aren't, and just go with the ones who are being supportive for you. And if there is that person that is blocking you, and it's something you want, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just giving general, if there's a person who's blocking you from getting a position or something that you're looking for, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about in general. Focus your time with the people that want to help you and not the people that want to tear you down.
Yeah, I agree. Great advice. Great advice. Because sometimes, you lose the fact of the people that want to help you and focus on the negative rather than the positive. So take the positive and run with it as far as you can. That's great. I love that. Well, Curtis, this was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you on the show. Please share with our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
So you can find me at WC Preston on Twitter or wcurtispreston@gmail.com.
Great. Well, thank you again. It was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to Tech in the Right Direction. Please take a minute to subscribe or follow so that you never miss an episode. Also, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Thank you. See you next week.
From IT skill enhancements to end-user adoption training, Directions Training is your resource to help optimize the effectiveness of your technology investments. Over 500,000 students have taken advantage of our wide selection of technology and business training solutions covering the most popular applications today, such as Microsoft 365, Azure, Windows 10, and more. As a podcast listener, we invite you to take advantage of an exclusive offer. Receive 30 days of free access to our Microsoft official curriculum on-demand courses for IT professionals or end users. Visit us at www.directionstraining.com/podcast to claim this offer today. Hurry, this offer is only available for a limited time. Success is a journey. Ask for directions.